Good day. I'm Theodore Roosevelt, 26th President of the United States. And here I want to introduce you to a special time with some special people. You know, where I'm at now, I kind of take a look at America, kind of watch over it since I left office, see how we Americans are getting along. And I'm not the only one. I'd like to introduce to you and to each other Americans who were special for their time, who did something above and beyond the call of ordinary citizenry, and as such should be remembered for who they were and what they did. And I'm talking about gathering, and they were grateful or nice enough to do so. Gentlemen, I've been wanting to put together for a long time and ask questions of myself and just kind of talk and share things. And that, of course, is His Excellency, General George Washington, our first president, Thomas Jefferson, a writer with no equal, perhaps except one, and that would be Mr. Abraham Lincoln. And they have agreed to join me today and just kind of visit with one another. So, gentlemen, if I may, General Washington, you know Mr. Jefferson, of course, and introduce you to Mr. Lincoln, Mr. Washington, Mr. Jefferson. So with that, we'll just kind of talk about what's on our minds, if you don't mind. So you have seniority, sir, so I would like to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me here. I may be the senior, but wisdom is present in you three gentlemen. So I look forward to joining this conversation and learning from you. And if I may start off with a question. Of course, President Jefferson, your Declaration of Independence. I, of course, wasn't there for that. I was up in Boston, but I understood you sequestered yourself and then just over a short period of time came up with this seminal document, our Declaration of Independence. What was it like being up in that second floor of that room, and what was it, inspiration? What was, how did you put that together?
First of all, I would thank this gentleman for gathering all of us, President Washington. I must admit, this feels as if I'm in a dream. I'm not certain exactly how this is all operating. As to your question, I was asked by Mr. Adams particularly to draw the document. I retreated to my rooms, as you said, and then my task was not to come up with new principles that have never been said before, but to express them in a way that made the most sense for the American tone and spirit of the occasion. And that is what drew me into that statement, which I have heard many times since repeated, that all men are created equal. And I hope that the future of our country will be based upon that premier principle. May I ask, who said Mr. Lincoln? I know this is a bit past your time, President Washington. Mr. Levi Lincoln of Massachusetts, are you related? He was my Attorney General. Are you related to Mr. Levi Lincoln?
Levi Lincoln. Well, I'll have to confess, I know very little of my family. Now, when I was finally elected, of course, long after you gentlemen had passed from the contemporary scene, a good number of people after my election began corresponding with me and saying, well, we have Lincolns in my family, and some of them had similar names, and they would ask if we were related. I don't know much about my family. I do know that my parents were born in Virginia, and that I had a grandparent born in Virginia as well, and then a great-grandparent that came from Pennsylvania. And that's as much as I know. And that was from my father's side, on the Lincoln side. Of my mother's side, I know almost nothing. And I think she knew almost nothing as well.
And Mr. Roosevelt, where is your home, sir? I take it it's a Dutch name?
Well, Roosevelt means field of roses in the Dutch language. And if you say, where's my home? Well, quite honestly, all of the United States is my home. But where I live with my wife and children, Oyster Bay, New York, although we originally lived in Manhattan on 57th Street for one. I was born on 20th Street, and I have lived out into the Dakotas, which is a part of the magnificent and wonderful Louisiana Purchase, which you brought about. I hope you've been trying to keep an eye on that part of the United States and how it's grown. I did, if I may divert just a second. You were talking about family, and that got me thinking of my own family. We had a great time in the White House. This may come as a surprise to you gentlemen. But
The White House, what?
Oh,
I'm not certain what that means.
you know it as the Executive Mansion.
I understand.
But I was sitting in the Executive Mansion, and there was a piece of paper, and I said, the White House would be a good title for this, and by golly, that's what I put down, and ever since then, it's, as far as I know, unless they've changed it since then, it's now the White House. And, well, we had a wonderful time. You never got to experience even the Executive Mansion, did you?
No. My presidency was spent in New York and in Philadelphia. The land was chosen for development of the Capitol and other buildings, and I was present for the laying of the cornerstone of the Capitol building, but as far as the other buildings, that's all after my time.
I can make one comment, sir. I did have the opportunity to live in the Executive Mansion.
Yes.
And I received much criticism. I remember one of the correspondents said there was no purpose in having a mansion of that size, as it could hold two emperors, Dalai Lama and the Pope, and he saw it a waste of money.
Yes. Well,
I must have some unfortunate news for you. There are now plans. When we moved in, it had fallen into terrible disrepair. And there was a war brewing at the time, and my dear wife felt it was important to upgrade as well as we could with a view to the future and inducing some hopefulness into the contemporary mood, which was not very hopeful. But there's already land purchased to build a new executive mansion, and I was told that I would be the last administration to live in that building. Now, is that what happened? Since you have
no. Typically, of American politicians is they promise on this hand while they're taking on this hand, and nothing quite gets done in the timely manner. In fact, when we moved in, Edith, Mrs. Roosevelt, and myself, she immediately began work on remodeling the White House, and it was far superior, if I may say, to
don't
what
tell
you
Mrs. Lincoln.